Hey, everybody, it's Doug Green, and I'm the publisher of Technology Reseller News. And I'm very pleased to have with me today Chip Witt, who's the principal security evangelist at Radware. Chip, thank you for joining me today.
My pleasure.
So, of course, it wouldn't be a TR podcast without talking about AI. It's the talk of the town. But the headline here is going to be really interesting. And I think is the most interesting thing I've heard in a while, actually, about AI. Chip, I need to attribute this to you. AI as a participant and not a tool. We're going to be talking about that in just a second. But first, Chip, what is Radware?
What is Radware? Radware is a company that protects applications, infrastructure, and increasingly APIs and AI. So that's core at what Radware is. I'm, of course, the principal security evangelist at Radware. So I work closely with service providers and enterprises on how security is changing as AI moves into production. My focus is helping organizations understand what machine speed, AI-driven risk really looks like, and how to maintain visibility and control as environments get more automated.
And we missed each other at HIMSS. So it sounds like your company does have a focus in the healthcare industry.
We do. We have focus in several industries. Our two primary industries that we focus on are healthcare and in financial. So we have broader coverage than that, of course, but those are two areas that we've been focused on over the last couple of years.
So your company those are industries. These are industries with lots of regulatory issues,
Yes.
complex HIPAA regulations, and so on, and a lot of laws and rules that were passed long before AI was thought of.
Yes.
All right, so I think you know what you're talking about on this topic. So you want to also tell everybody. Let's talk about a recent announcement. Radware recently announced agentic AI protection solution focused on securing autonomous AI agents. So tell me a little bit about that.
So most security tools were built to protect people using systems. Agentic AI protection is about securing systems that act on their own. So when AI agents can create workflows, call APIs, and make decisions autonomously, organizations need visibility into behavior, not just access. That's the gap this solution addresses.
And why did you come forward with this? What is this taking the place of?
Taking the place of is an interesting way of framing that. I know people have applications, kind of the web and API-driven world, and they've needed to protect against threat actors commandeering those applications. And increasingly now, we have an AI-driven world where AI is embedded into applications or is being used as an interface to do things for users in much the same way an application would. And so this is creating some interesting problems in that you can't secure AI in the same way you secure applications. It requires a little bit different approach because it isn't just the security risks, it's more broadly what that AI can do that's unintended. And that's pretty scary. So AI shifts the risk from something that unfolds over hours or days to something that can happen in milliseconds. Machine speed is a real problem, and that's why this solution has come about, is to address those concerns.
So is AI changing the way service providers think about security and risk?
Well, for service providers, security can't be reactive anymore. You need continuous visibility and the ability to detect when automated systems start behaving in unexpected ways before small issues scale. And that's really changing the game.
Now, what do you mean by that? In other words, when you say it can't be reactive anymore, in other words, your feeling is our security regimes were basically something happens and then we responded.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, is basically, if you look at threat landscapes, everybody looks at the static response, right? You see a problem, you respond to the problem. With AI, that problem can shift. A really good example is in how risk shows up. Risk isn't always an attack anymore. It's unintended behavior. AI-driven systems can amplify minor errors or misconfigurations very quickly. Nothing looks malicious at first, but the impact can be significant if the system is acting continuously at scale.
As organizations adopt AI-driven workflows, what's fundamentally changing about how risks show up?
So again, it's not just security. I actually have been talking with a lot with analysts, and analysts are starting to key into this. Is that the traditional concept of security as being an external threat are shifting slightly with AI and looking more at unintended consequences of the AI being able to act autonomously. So you really have that unintended behavior coming to the forefront of the concern spectrum.
So is what you're doing at Radware working on that? In other words, are you trying to address the fact that the AI in your system basically can go off and do its own thing? I think that's what
Yeah,
I'm hearing.
yeah, it's looking at it from a behavior and intent-based landscape, right? So you're not just looking for security problems in the traditional sense. You're also looking at, does the tool actually match the intent of the tool for the organization? So you have guardrails that are loosely looking at things and shaping things dynamically based on what the intent of that system is. And that's a different model. And that's
So
what Radware is providing.
and that's in the environment of an overall change in
Yes,
the level of control organizations have over their environments.
right.
You want to talk a little bit more about that? Is in other
Well,
words, is this wider than I think it is?
Well, organizations don't lose control. They lose the illusion of static control. When
Oh,
systems act autonomously, you need guardrails and real-time oversight rather than hard rules. The key question becomes, is the system behaving as it should right now, not just how it was configured?
Chip, do people really know what's going on? Do we really actually have visibility or the visibility that we need to understand what AI might be doing?
So AI activity is really hard to see. It often looks like normal machine traffic, API calls, internal automation, background processes. Traditional tools weren't designed to distinguish intent at the machine level. Without context and behavioral monitoring, AI actions blend into the noise, which creates serious visibility gaps.
So, are there risks that organizations still that you think organizations are almost getting ahead of themselves, that they're implementing AI and AI solutions and so on without fully understanding uh, what's going on, what the AI is capable of doing, and so on, and also the security risk?
I think it's actually a little bit more nuanced than that. Everybody's aware that AI can increase productivity and can streamline operations and do some amazing things. I think one of the biggest problems right now is that there still isn't a practice wrapped around AI and around securing AI. So there's a lot of uh, little spots of AI being used across an organization, and the visibility of that is what's lacking right now. If you don't know where AI is operating, you can't manage the risk. That leads to blind spots around the data access, compliance, and operational stability. And in heavily regulated environments, like we were talking about, finance and healthcare, or in mission critical environments, that lack of awareness can turn into real business and reputational damage over the long term.
So, are there scenarios? So far, we've been talking about this at a very high level and a kind of an abstract level.
Mhm.
Play out for me some actual real world scenarios.
Well, there are several interesting scenarios that we've actually seen around. One of the things that we discovered through our team's work was some very insidious indirect prompt injections where the attack basically inserted code into a document that was going to be processed by an agent, and that agent took that as a instruction to carry out. That instruction actually leaked data to a third party site. Now, the thing that made this different from some of the other indirect prompt injections that had been seen previous to this is that the leak occurred entirely on the AI platform servers. So it was invisible
Hmm.
to the enterprise. That's kind of scary. So we're seeing cases where AI workflows get manipulated indirectly and through APIs or chained automations or indirect prompt injection of data being in what's being processed without anything being hacked. In other cases, autonomous systems optimize themselves into dangerous feedback loops. That's pretty scary. The risk isn't always malicious intent. It's systems acting beyond what teams anticipated.
Let's talk about corporate culture. A lot of people tell me that security. They have a traditional security approach. It's sort of embedded into the culture of the company.
Mhm.
It's the way, quote unquote, we've always done it.
Sure.
Um, how's that sort of colliding with the changes you're seeing?
Well, and traditional security isn't bad in and of itself. It focuses on known threats and human behavior, which is sane, right? But AI-driven environments produce novel machine-generated actions that don't match signatures or rules. So collecting logs isn't enough. You need to understand behavior and intent at machine speed, which is something humans alone can't do.
So we had a collecting logs forever almost, right?
Mhm.
Culture. What do you need to do? In other words, what takes the place of that? And how do you nudge that culture? It's very hard. It's one thing to say, hey, that's what we're going to do, but then there's this sort of habit that occurs inside companies.
Yeah, I'm not advocating for stopping doing what we've been doing because again,
Okay.
it's sane behavior across a lot of different apps that aren't AI driven. And even in certain cases with AI driven apps, logs still provide sane recourse. But what I am saying is that you can't rely on them exclusively in the AI landscape. You have to watch behavior and understand intent. And so behavior-based analytics become increasingly not just important, but critical in understanding how the AI is interacting with data systems and complying with the business goals that are stated and the regulatory compliance standards that you actually have set for your organization.
So, what are you saying to service providers in terms of what they should be saying to their customers?
Service providers are in a great position to help customers understand where AI is actually running and what it's doing. By offering visibility, monitoring, and guardrails as a service, providers can help customers reduce risk while positioning themselves as trusted advisors, which is what we all want to be considered, right?
So, Chip, if we were at one of these panels at one of these, since it's still sort of show season, sometimes it's a fun thing to say. What's the one thing I could do today? What's the one thing when I get home I could do? What is the one thing maybe you can immediately do?
Start by inventorying where AI exists in your environment and what actions it can take. You don't need to stop AI, you need to watch it. Understanding behavior is the fastest way to reduce AI related risks.
That sort of indicates to me that you think that some companies, when you say inventory, that they're not actually aware of what they've got.
This is definitely true. I talk with a lot of CISOs in different industries. That's my job. I go out and I speak with the industry. And by and large, that's a big problem, not only with AI, but also with API security as well, as visibility is the biggest hurdle that they're facing right now because things are changing so quickly and they don't have a full inventory of what's going on. So visibility is the first job because it was what isn't seen isn't manageable.
This almost sounds like a human in the loop question as we sort of wrap up our podcast. That I get the sense what you're also telling me is that there's so many moving parts in a large organization. Someone might just be going out there and using some AI without even the CISO's knowledge.
This is true. Yep,
Yeah.
and we hear cases of this all the time, and just in the uptick, we actually had a really cool slide we included in our decks for a little while, where it actually showed the rise to 100 million users, and ChatGPT did that in the shortest amount of time imaginable, compared to some things like even like TikTok and other sorts of apps. So people are using AI, and people that use AI and find usefulness for it in their personal lives oftentimes try to figure out a way to bring that into the work environment with or without a program to support securing it at enterprise scale. And so that's where service providers can help their customers, is to get them ahead of that curve and start providing that security to protect the enterprise, protect the organization in that context.
So you are, in fact, the principal security evangelist at Radware. What are you telling Radware customers? How are you helping them achieve the goal of basically tightening things up?
Our approach is basically to detect abnormal machine activity and respond in real time without disrupting innovation. And that basically means that you have to understand what's in your fold and be able to detect it, which we can help you do, and then put guardrails around it to understand how it's being used, what tools it's using, what data it's accessing, what other agents it's talking to, and be able to produce reports and understanding around that.
Chip, I really want to thank you for joining me today. This has been an all too brief conversation on a huge topic, but I hope we get more, and I hope we get to unpack some of the specific topics we started in on today. I'm still very intrigued about the idea of agentic AI as a participant and not just a tool. Where can we learn more about Radware?
Listeners can learn more about Radware at radware.com. Especially our resources on AI and autonomous system security. There's a lot of practical guidance for service providers and enterprises navigating these changes right now.
And just as we completely close up, is there anything there that right on that website that they could even do today to start that process?
Absolutely. There are tools, resources, and information that will help them kind of set things forward in their AI discovery and make sure that they can do the right thing. Radware's here to help for sure.
Chip Witt, everybody, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, sir.